And then because they get this loan, they need a means to pay for it. Now their job becomes their one asset, and they're very scared to lose their job. Therefore, you are now fearful to lose your job, and you are now controlled. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Another episode of Banned Opinion. This one's going to be on keeping people financially fearful. Many mechanisms to this, and we'll go through a few of them, and we'll give you solutions at the end, of course. That's how we always do it. Problem and a solution. So let's begin. So number one is debt dependency. Debt dependency comes in the form of credit cards, loans, mortgages, and such. Because nowadays we're so fucking taxed. It's unbelievable, unless you're maybe American and or some other country where you could kind of escape from the taxes. There's loopholes and such there. I'm not going to get too much into that, but Canada is very difficult unless you know what you're doing. That could be another video on that another time. But anyways, going back to it, credit cards, loans, mortgages. Most people wouldn't be able to afford the things that they buy, like cars or mortgages and such, if they did not go to the bank and get some type of loan. And then, because they get this loan, they need a means to pay for it. Now their job becomes their one asset, and they're very scared to lose their job. Therefore, you are now fearful to lose your job, and you are now controlled. That's basically what it is. You could jump from job to job, but you're still going to be in the same position most times. You may get a manager, some kind of lead role at the end of the day, but all in all, you're building someone else's castle, not your own. All right, so that's debt dependency, and then it creates job dependency. Instead of figuring out how to make money work for you and such, where most people just seem to get a job, work that, and be completely content with that. And you know what? That's fine for some people. But you're not going to get ahead very far, especially with this economy. And speaking about the economy, inflation, erosion. So we all complain about taxes, but very few people complain about inflation. That is basically caused because of, well, money printing, budget deficits, which they fund by the bond market. And anyways, I'll make another episode on bond market. I'm not going to get too much into that. That's a whole thing in itself. But at the end of the day, it makes you lose your purchasing power. It's the hidden tax that people seem to not be aware of. They're starting to be more aware of it now because they see it at the grocery store. But before then, it's all sunshine and rainbows. Hey, I'm happy I'm getting my COVID payday and my Biden bucks, you know. Not so happy now when it starts hitting you in the pocketbook later on. That's because of inflation. If your GDP ain't growing, you're gonna have inflation. That's basically the very simple mechanism right there. Then we also have lack of financial literacy. So in order to keep you a debt slave, we'll go more into why our currency is keeping us debt slaves, because it's not money, it's currency, okay? But we'll have a separate video on that. So with lack of financial literacy, people make retarded decisions. We know this. We all at one time do stupid decisions, like we'll buy a car we don't need, or maybe too big of a house, or maybe you're not ready for a house, or you don't realize that house is a big fucking liability and you could become house poor. Yeah. I'm a big fan of only getting a house if you can make it into, or at least a portion of it into, an asset. That way you don't have the burden of coming up with the flow every month, right? But you get into these things, like you're gonna depend on your job even more so your expenses run higher. And then if you lose your job for any reason, you can have pretty bad financial ruin if you're not careful, and if you don't have other assets and other incomes at play. So financial literacy, it's a big one. I mean, we see so many TikTok videos and all that of people just being absolutely dumb. And, you know, going into debt with student loans, that doesn't necessarily make sense nowadays either, unless you're going for a specialist of something, okay? Like we're talking doctor, we're talking doctor, we're talking dentist, lawyer, stuff like that. But even then, it's a long time, a lot of time spent, a lot of money. And then once you actually do get your job, you're spending like half the time just climbing out of that mountain of debt you created for yourself, you know. So there's that. Then the keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, I experienced this at my own camp, you know. So we'll use that as an example. Someone has a deck, oh, you want a deck. Someone has a boat slip, you want a boat slip. Someone has a new camper, you want a new camper. You know, it's just like, oh, we need the newest features. We see this a lot with phones and vehicles. Like I drive a 2012 Ram. It's paid off. Why? It's a Laramie. It has all the features that I could ever want. Why would I upgrade that? I mean, what am I going to get better? The heated seats might work a touch better maybe, but whatever. Put a towel over the seats. It won't be so bad. You know, just little things like that. You don't need everything perfect. And a lot of people think that they need to show status, right? And at the age we're going in, you don't want to show status, okay? I'll tell you that right now, because it'll make you a goddamn target, especially when they're bringing a bunch of people overseas from fucking Somalia. What do you think? You'll be a target. So don't look too wealthy nowadays. Actually, one of my great investor buddies, he shows up for breakfast. The guy has a torn shirt, torn jeans, but he's actually a millionaire. And he don't look like it though. He does that on purpose though, because he knows better. He doesn't want to be a target. And I agree with him, 100%. So there's that. And of course, the job insecurity. We kind of touched on that earlier. So that's the main thing that keeps people afraid, in fear. Because they lose their job, they don't know what they're going to do because they piled on a bunch of debt and they're locked into these payments. And now all of a sudden, they're negative cash flow because something unexpected happened, right? Which is, it's unfortunate, but you got to have a backup plan. You got to have multiple assets at play. You can't just have one asset. If you think that's all you need is one asset, well, it must be a big asset like a business or you're a specialist at something. Because if you're depending on one income, oh man, take it from me. I don't think I'd be able to make it and have the lifestyle I have with just one income. I need multiple. You just do. It's when you're against inflation and taxes, you have to get more creative, especially up here in Canada. You gotta know the write-off game. You gotta know how taxes work. You know, so that all kind of goes into financial literacy and such. But just remember, a job is just a job. What you create is what you create. I'm talking businesses, even products, but I wouldn't even concentrate on products. I concentrate on businesses or investing into some type of cash flow, all right? And you're gonna have to take risks because without risks, there's no reward. Unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And you know how you always hear these people, oh, you got lucky, you got lucky. Well, I have something about that. Sure, there's luck out there, I agree, but you create it. You create your own luck by taking risks. Without taking a risk, how are you gonna create luck? You just aren't. You're not gonna create any luck. There's no way. There's no way you're gonna create any luck. Why? Because you didn't take the risk. Without risk, there's no reward, as the saying goes. Then we also have the fake money supply. So this money supply has been concocted for over a century now, but it goes way back into the inner city of London, all right? So what I mean by this is the central banks. They have created a fake money supply, and the treasuries of the governments around the world issue bonds. So when they issue bonds, this is basically saying IOU. The treasury is basically printing IOUs. The Fed goes, and whoever goes to the bond auctions, well, now the government owes them the interest rate. This is why we have 10-year bond auctions and yada, yada, yada. But here's the thing. When you do too many IOUs, you dilute the currency supply. So it's just another mechanism of inflating the money supply. And then when you do your research, you're gonna realize we don't actually use money, we use currency, okay? It's a fake, fraudulent currency that they just print out of thin air, and it's all to steal your purchasing power. That's what it's all about. All to steal your purchasing power to make you a debt slave. That's what it is. Real money is only gold and silver bullion, not the certificates, not the ETFs, bullion. All right. If you need a good site for that, Canadian or American, silvergoldbull.com or CA. Very good site. I've used it lots myself over the years. Legit silver, legit gold, legit everything. And if you have an RSP, you could also diversify into the Brinks vaulting system. And I think it's 401ks in the US. You're able to do it through them and actually have it in a registered account where you actually hold bullion in your RRSPs outside of the banking system actually. And you could get delivery as well. But then there's penalties and all that because you're cashing in your RRSP and such. All right, so there's that. And that's the big one, is the fake money supply, guys. That's what controls us all. Through the fractional reserve lending system, they could literally just, they don't even lend you out their money. They're lending our money back to us. That's the big scam of this all. It's all hypothecated. It's all derivatives. It's all just leverage. We live on a system of leverage. People think the Canadian system's great. Oh, really? Well, riddle me this. So we need 10% in our banking system here in Canada for a bank to stay with liquidity requirements by law. But what we see happening is they're actually 1% capitalized, and what they do is they go to the repo market, AKA the overnight lending market, and they lend money from other banks. That's what they do. They get lending from other banks, they pay it off in the morning, pay the interest, business as usual. That's how they stay afloat. So if you think your money's safe in the bank, no, but they keep it in there. You keep it in there because of fear of someone stealing it, fear of this. There's other ways. I'll get to that in another video. Mainly participating whole life policy with a mutual life company, paid up additions, and max overfunding. You probably don't know what that is, and that's fine. We'll explain in another video. So what are other solutions to this? Raise your financial IQ. Invest in yourself. You got to really, really take it seriously. Figure out other skill sets. Figure out other ways to invest to increase your cash flow with other income streams. It could be anything. You might have a special skill set that other people don't. I don't know who you are, but you gotta use your natural talents and also your passions to create other skill sets, or just something you're interested in. For me, it's real estate. I like real estate. I'm a bit passionate about it. I like it. But is it the end all be all? No. I also like business. I also like other types of investing like crypto. You know, if you guys want to check out the stream there, we'll put a link below. It's pretty much all about charting crypto and what we think is going to happen. Use many methods, but anywho. One of the big things too is, as a solution, is knowing that the government currencies are worthless and that gold and silver bullion is the only real money. I'm not saying it's the best investment. It doesn't provide cash flow and such. What it does is preserves wealth, and in times of crisis, it'll increase your purchasing power by a lot. And then you're gonna, if you have silver, you're gonna get it traded for gold. You got gold, you're trading for cash flow real estate. That's the mechanism. But when? Nobody truly knows. And that's the fun of investing. Nobody knows, it just happens, but you have to be positioned. And if you're not positioned, well, like the saying goes, it's better to be a day early than a day too late. And that's basically it, guys. Just come up with skill sets to get other income streams flowing to you. Buy a business. They don't want you buying businesses. Now, it also depends where you buy the business and all that. That's a whole other topic in itself, as I'm sure you can understand. But just know that they keep control of you through the money supply, through the fear, and then that's why you're trapped in the job you most likely hate. So if that's you, keep watching these videos. If you found any value today in this video, the usual, guys, help me fight that algo. He's a bit of a prick, you know. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me your band opinion as well. You know, ask some questions, whatever it is. Light up that comment section. Even just type a word, fake money, you know, something like that. Or no fear, something like that too. All right. Anyways, boys, Sheldon, signing off.